Where is that? Actually move.
Got you right here. This is a CF Rolex I got from Shenzhen for only 120 USD, and it still ticks. Everything is perfect.
Watches come in different sizes. A small dial makes you with slimmer, while a large one makes you a stronger arrow. First of all, you need to determine your budget range. The Rolex data dress is the best choice for cost effective.
Are Rolex watches made in China? So what I know to be true, and having seen with my own beady little eyes while working at Swatch Group, who own, is that they have bracelets, dials, cases, hands, movement components, all made in China. I've seen the packaging for them, I've seen the country of origin stamped on them, I know that to be true. Rolex mass-produced watches are the best mass-produced watches you can get. They make, what, 1.2 to 1.5 million watches a year. They're not made by hand. They're made on a production line. They do machine pretty much everything. There's no hand finishing. It doesn't take them a year to make a watch. They're the best mass-produced watch. They're the Toyota Corolla of watches.
That Rolex on your wrist? It might be more Chinese than you think. For decades, Swiss luxury watchmakers have sold us an image, a carefully curated fantasy of tradition, craftsmanship, and exclusivity. You picture a white-haired artisan in a quiet workshop in Geneva, hand-assembling a timepiece with tweezers and a loop, like a surgeon performing sacred work. But pull back the curtain, and a very different reality emerges. The luxury watch world has been running one of the most brilliant branding plays in modern history. And now, that illusion is starting to crack. Here's the cold truth. Over 90% of the world's watches are made in China, and more specifically, in one place, Shenzhen.
As soon as you see this video, please don't spend a lot of money on a watch. I am a watch factory from China. Because I can no longer bear that you spend tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy watches, I take the risk of offending all brands to tell you one thing. In fact, watches do not need to be that expensive. I can let you get a big brand watch with 1% of the original price.
打包之后好漂亮哦。半成品的表带。哦，磨了之后它就不会擦手了。
This city, once just a fishing village in the 1980s, is now a tech and manufacturing titan. You name it, smartphones, drones, electronics, and yes, watches, it's all happening there. And we're not talking about back alley sweatshops. We're talking state-of-the-art facilities with CNC machines, precision tooling, and skilled labor. Some of these factories are producing cases, dials, bezels, and sapphire glass of a quality so high, even trained experts can't tell the difference from Swiss originals. And the kicker? These same factories are often quietly supplying components to the very Swiss brands that claim to uphold purity and heritage. Omega, Tag Heuer, Tissot, rumors have long swirled that many of their parts are sourced from Asia. Even Rolex, the gold standard of exclusivity, is suspected of using outsourced parts at various points in its production process. They might not admit it publicly, but industry insiders and ex-employees know the game.
I got fired from Swatch Group today for talking about their products on TikTok. Before we get into the reasons why I was fired, just for the people who don't know, Swatch Group is a large Swiss watch group that comprises brands like Omega, Longines, Tissot, Breguet, Blancpain, Rado, Hamilton, and of course Swatch. One of the reasons that I got fired was for this video where I talk about how Swiss watch brands say they service your watch but actually just swap out the movement for a new one, and that was classified as a breach of company confidentiality. Oh, and also, how could I forget when I talked about how Omega parts for watches weren't made in Switzerland but were instead made in China. That's probably a big one.
Final assembly in Switzerland earns you the legal right to say Swiss-made, even if the rest came straight out of a box from Shenzhen. And here's where it gets fascinating. A growing number of these Chinese manufacturers are no longer content with staying behind the curtain. They're taking matters into their own hands, producing near-identical builds of luxury watches and selling them directly to the public. This isn't your typical back-alley fake with a dodgy movement and misspelled logo. No, these are one-to-one builds, made with surgical precision. They use 904L stainless steel, the same grade Rolex uses. They laser etch hot engravings. They apply real loom, real ceramic bezels, and sometimes even repurpose genuine movements. If the branding weren't missing, most people, experts included, couldn't tell the difference. These aren't being sold on sketchy websites or shady forums anymore. Instead, it's all happening underground but organized: Telegram channels, WeChat groups, Discord servers. They use code names. Instead of saying Rolex Submariner, they'll call it Water Ghost V11, where the V stands for version and the number marks how refined the replica has become. Some factories iterate every few months, correcting minor flaws to match new Rolex releases within weeks of the originals hitting stores. It's like a parallel industry, faster, leaner, and less burdened by tradition. Now let's talk about the Swiss-made label, the holy grail of horological legitimacy. You see it on the dial and immediately think, ah yes, craftsmanship, precision, history. But the truth is, the phrase Swiss-made is more marketing loophole than manufacturing promise. According to Swiss law, a watch can legally be called Swiss-made if 60% of its value comes from Switzerland. That value includes not just parts or labor, but intangible elements like brand equity, research, and marketing. So a watch could be 70% made in China, shipped to Switzerland for a final movement installation and a quick polish, and still wear the Swiss-made badge with pride. It's not illegal. It's just brilliantly manipulated. Whistleblowers and independent watchmakers have begun to shed light on this. A former watch restorer from Lucerne went on record saying he discovered modern components in so-called vintage Swiss watches. Others revealed that some brands have quietly outsourced bracelet production and even dial printing to factories in Asia to cut costs and scale up production. The moment you peek behind the luxury curtain, you realize that the house of horology is built on a foundation of marketing genius and manufacturing ambiguity. And while all this is unfolding, a silent revolution is happening online. New age buyers, tech-savvy, skeptical, and value-driven, are starting to question the status quo. Why spend $10,000 on a luxury watch when a near-identical version, often made in the same factory, costs $400 and is indistinguishable to the average person? This isn't about fakes anymore. It's about access to quality without paying a 10x markup for a brand name and a velvet box. Even Rolex, the impenetrable titan of the watch world, has started to respond to the shifting tides. In 2024, Rolex made a quiet but shocking move. They lowered prices on some of their most popular models, Submariners, GMTs, Explorers. It wasn't announced through a press release or a glitzy campaign. It just happened. Dealers were stunned. Watch forums exploded. Why would the king of scarcity, the master of waitlists, reduce prices? Maybe because the pressure from the underground market is real. Maybe, for the first time, Rolex realized that near-perfect alternatives are eating into their territory, not just with broke teenagers, but with collectors who are tired of playing games. Let's break down the economics for a second. Industry experts estimate that producing a high-end watch, materials, labor, quality control, might cost anywhere between $1,200 to $2,000. That same watch retails for $6,000, $10,000, or even more. The markup is often 5x or higher, and we're not even including the dealer margin or luxury boutique markup. Some brands, like Christopher Ward, have committed to fair pricing, publicly stating they won't charge more than 3 times their production cost. But they're the exception. For most luxury brands, secrecy and inflated margins are part of the mystique. And here's a juicy detail. Rolex is technically a non-profit foundation, the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, to be exact. This structure allows them to avoid publishing public financial statements. In theory, that sounds noble. In reality, it means they operate behind an iron curtain, hoarding billions in revenue while controlling supply so tightly that even billionaire clients have to wait months, or years, for certain models. Meanwhile, the so-called replica industry is innovating faster than ever. Some factories are experimenting with real ETA movements, the same kind once used in genuine Swiss watches before Swatch pulled supply. Others have begun reverse engineering Rolex's in-house calibers. While the accuracy and durability aren't always on par, the fact that they're even close is proof that the barrier between real and replica is thinner than ever before. It begs the question, what are you really paying for when you buy a luxury watch? The steel, the craftsmanship, or the story, the dream, the brand? For some, that dream is still worth every penny. A Rolex isn't just a timepiece, it's a status signal, a generational heirloom, a trophy. It carries weight in business deals, family dinners, and Instagram posts. And that's fine. But for a growing number of buyers, that story is starting to feel a little hollow. Because now they know. They know the sapphire came from Shenzhen. The bracelet was milled in Dongguan. The ceramic bezel was sourced in Guangzhou. They know the watch that costs $15,000 could have cost $500 if it had been assembled in the exact same factory but skipped the branding. So here's the final twist. The power dynamic has shifted. The industry can no longer rely on mystique alone. Today's consumer has Reddit threads, teardown videos, microscope comparisons, and 4K reviews. They know that heritage can be faked, just like a logo. And in this new world, truth is the new luxury. Transparency, honesty, And real value, not marketing smoke and mirrors, will determine the next generation of horological kings. Because at the end of the day, the most valuable thing you can wear on your wrist isn't a brand, it's knowledge.